We're going to practice with our slow flow. The only thing I want to say is grab a pillow. So if you have one handy, just a throw pillow is fine. If you have a yoga block, also fine. A blanket rolled up would be fine. And if you're like, I don't have anything near me, you can also do it without. But as I'm talking, if you want to grab yourself a pillow, keep that handy. That might be helpful. And then we're going to go ahead and get started. So I'll invite you to come onto your mat and I'm going to have you start seated on your shins. So having a seat on your heels and just taking a moment here, close your eyes and give yourself a couple of deep breaths. This upright posture gives you a nice tall spine, and you might be able to feel your breath move, just letting your ribs move and expand. As you're settling in here, if this feels comfortable, you can stay. You can also place your weight into your fingertips so that you can tuck your toes under and then have a seat. Again, this is called broken toe pose. Sounds terrible. It's actually really good for your feet. So either seated with your toenails down or with your toes tucked. And I'm just going to invite you to settle in for just a few more breaths like this, just letting your ribs expand, letting your spine be nice and tall. And then while y'all are settling in there, I'm just going to double check, make sure everybody can hear sound and everything. Just giving yourself a few breaths. And then again, whether you're in broken toe, or we often call this ballet toe, toenail side down, play with leaning back slightly. If you're in broken toe pose, leaning back can be very intense, so just going gently. If you're in ballet toe, you might be able to lean back quite a bit. Your knees might lift a little, just playing with that. Leaning back is a bit more of a core container strengthener, but it's also changing where you might be feeling stretch and strength in your lower half. Just give yourself about 1 or 2 breaths here. And then everybody lean forward. Place your weight in your fingertips. If you are in broken toe, untuck, and then everybody just kind of tap your feet. So just tapping the tops of your feet, getting a little bit of blood flow in there. And then I'm going to have everybody land in broken toe. So tuck your toes. As you sit your weight back onto your heels, you might keep some of your weight into your fingertips. You might bring your hands up to your legs, or again, you might lean back slightly. Just give yourself a big deep breath here. And then this time, you're going to play with the first round. Bring your fingertips to the ground and then keep your spine as long as possible. Tap your forehead down and then come back up. And then try that again without fingers. You're going to play with fingers back, maybe playing with tapping your forehead down and then coming back up. No fingers is going to give you quite a bit more challenge. So you might play with one hand at a time or just continuing to move this little tap down. Maybe you're doing one hand at a time and then switching sides, just moving through these little tap downs. Your forehead doesn't have to touch the ground. You're just moving in that direction. Give yourself 1 or 2 more. Maybe your hands are reaching back, using the slow control. And as you're finishing this last one, go ahead and untuck your toes, settle onto your heels again. Give yourself a big deep breath and soften your shoulders. We're going to do those little taps one more time. This is, again, an interesting way to warm up the core, playing with balance from a low position rather than a tall position. This time with your toes untucked, toenail side down. You might find a little bit more stability this time with those little tap downs. Again, you can play with both fingers down or switching one hand at a time or playing with hands reaching back. Again, this might be a little more stable, so maybe hands reaching back is a bit more accessible. Your hips may lift as you play with that little tap down. Give yourself 2 or 3 more of these little tap downs, nice and slow. And finally, coming back up to your seat, almost finished with this little warm-up series here. We're going to play with one more tap down. This time, you're going to lift your hips up off your heels a couple of inches. So a lot of work in the legs, the core, as you're just lifting your bum away from your heels. Same idea, fingertips or one hand at a time. Give yourself 2 or 3 more tap downs. play with keeping your buns lifted away from your heels. That even when you come up, there's still space between your butt and your heels, just playing with those little tap downs. Little tap downs is probably deceiving. These can be very challenging. And then when you feel done with that last one, go ahead and sit back on your heels. This time, grab a hold of your knees, round your upper back like cats, and then play with shifting one shoulder up and then the other, just getting a little bit different stretch sensation as you move here. And from that little cat, baby cat, little kitten position, you're going to plant your hands in front of you like tabletop. You may have to walk your knees back a little depending on where you started on your mat. And then take puppy dog pose. So either hands walking forward or knees walking back, chest and forehead moving down towards your mat, hips lined up above your knees, and then resting here for a few rounds of breath. Just another breath or two in your puppy dog pose. And from here, start to lift your head, chest, and shoulders. You might come back to tabletop and then downward facing dog. Feel free to pedal at your knees. In this downward facing dog, just allowing your head to be nice and heavy. So you've got space between vertebrae, nice traction on your spine. And again, we spent several minutes in the knee closed position. So your upper leg putting a little bit of pressure on your calf. You might now notice new blood flow sensation. Sometimes blood flow feels like a little tingling in the feet. But just noticing that. Give yourself one or two more breaths here. Walk your feet to your hands at the top of your mat. You can clasp opposite elbows, ragdoll. Or if you want more of a shoulder stretch, clasp your hands behind your low back. You can try on both binds, just see which one works better for you, which one feels better. And give your head a little bit of a shake, just letting your upper body drape. If you have a bind, go ahead and release it. And everybody take a breath together. As you exhale, let your head drop a bit. This next breath in, take a halfway lift, deep breath. Sweep your arms back like airplane. From here, chair, keep your hips nice and low, reaching your arms as you lower your hips. And then bow forward. So a lot of bending at the knees here. Halfway lift. Airplane your arms as you exhale. Chair, low hips, high arms. Bow forward as you exhale. And we'll do that again, halfway. Airplane your arms as you exhale. Chair, big deep breath in. Press your heels down and away to strengthen. And then bow forward as you exhale. Halfway lift. Tabletop to exhale. And cow pose. Lift your chin and your chest. Cat pose on your way to downward facing dog. A couple of breaths in this down dog. Go ahead and lift your right leg up nice and high. Bend your knees, stack your hips. Couple of breaths in this three-legged downward facing dog. And draw your knee towards your chest. Place your foot between your hands. Back knee can be up or down. So it's a place where you can use your pillow as well, giving yourself a little cushion under your back knee if that feels good. And go ahead and reach your arms up. As you're in this supported crescent or high crescent, take a moment, use your right hand to press your front knee a little more forward. As you use your right hand to press your front knee forward, use your belly button to pull your belly backwards. As you pull your belly backwards, that's lifting, especially your left hip point up a little. Got a little bit of a push-pull. Right hand pushing forward, left hip point pulling up and back. Okay. And then your left arm still up nice and high here, so you've got a lot of space through the left side of your body. Couple of breaths here. Finding that little push-pull, press your right knee forward, pull your left hip point up and back. And then finally, you can relieve all of that push-pull. You might even lean a little bit more into your front knee, reach your left arm to the right. Couple of breaths in this side body stretch. Go ahead and plant your fingertips down to the ground. Standing splits, back leg comes up. Your back toes can stay touching the ground, so you're nice and low, or lift your leg as high as it makes sense. Give yourself a big deep breath here. Feet together, bow at the top of your mat. Halfway lift to breathe in. Airplane arms on the exhale. Chair pose, hips low, arms high. Bow forward as you exhale. As you halfway lift, press into your left foot. Your right foot, step it back. Knee up or down. Supported or high crescent. Give yourself a big deep breath here. And then allow your hips to move as far forward as makes sense, just letting time and gravity do this work here. Just one more big deep breath. And then tabletop to exhale. Cow pose, lift your chin and chest. Downward facing dog to exhale. And left leg lifted up high, bend your knees, stack your hips. Finding a gentle twist and a side body opening. Then as you're ready, left foot steps forward. Back knee can come down or stay up. Crescent lunge. And once you find your stability in crescent lunge, left hand to left knee, and find that same action, gently pushing your left knee forward as you pull your belly button backward. And again, as you pull your belly back, your right hip point is lifting up slightly. And then final little action, push your knee forward, pull your belly button backward. You can also play with squeezing your right butt cheek, gently pressing your hips forward, but resisting that forward motion by pulling your belly button backward. And we're moving from this active stretch into a more passive stretch. Give yourself a big deep breath. And then relieve all of that push-pull. You might lean a bit more forward into your leg. Right arm reaches over, side body stretch. Give yourself one more big deep breath here. And then fingertips down, standing splits. And take a deep breath. See if your right leg will lift just an inch higher. And feet together, bow at the top of your mat. Halfway lift. Airplane through your arms. And chair pose. Just a big deep breath in this chair. Bow forward, empty out. And when you halfway lift, press into your right foot and step your left foot back, back knee up or down. Crescent, arms come up. Slow, steady breath. Deep breath in together. Soften into your front knee as you exhale. We'll take one more breath here. Hands down, tabletop. Cow pose, chin and chest nice and tall. Cat to downward facing dog. Take a round of breath. Exhale it out. Then lift your right leg again. Take a deep breath. Place your foot between your hands. This time, everybody try back knee down. And then arms up. So kind of like our supported crescent lunge, we're going to move a little bit into a warrior series here. Everybody take a breath. And then open your arms front to back like you would for warrior. In this warrior position with your back knee down, you might notice a slightly different rotation sensation in the hip. And from here, reverse your warrior. And come back to your warrior two. Do that again, reverse. Come back to your warrior two. This time, stay. Walk your front foot a little farther forward so your leg is straight, hips lined up over your back knee. We're going to play, with some little tick-tocks here. So you reverse warrior again. Maybe you're touching your heel or the floor. Then as you come forward, you're going to tap your right fingers down to your shin. Your back hand can reach forward or up. And a couple more of those, reaching back. Again, left hand maybe touching your left heel. Then reaching forward. You might reach a little farther forward, fingers towards your toes to go a little deeper in that stretch. Reverse again. Another tap down. One more full round, reverse. Then find your little tap down. Last reverse here. And then come back to warrior two. So you're going to walk your front foot back towards you. So you're settling back into this lunge position. And then arms up like crescent. And this time take a twist to the right. Your right arm reaching back, left arm reaching forward. Now, oftentimes, when our back knee is high, we're focusing on balance. Here we can really focus on the twist. So use your right arm to reach back and then squeeze your right shoulder blade behind you to rotate at the rib cage. With that nice rotation, revolve supported crescent, left hand comes up, right fingers come back towards your back calf. Give yourself one big deep breath here. And then tabletop, slow, steady breath to exhale. Cow pose on the inhale. Then cat to downward facing dog. Lift your left leg, take a breath. And step your left foot forward, back knee comes down. Arms up, breath in. And then opening to your warrior two. Again, pausing for this first one. With your hip in a more forward position, you might again find as you rotate a little different sensation. From here, reverse your warrior. And come back to your warrior two. Reverse. Back to two. Stay in this two. Straighten your front leg again. Again, maybe making any adjustments that you need here. And we'll play with that again. Reverse. And then a little tap down, fingers to your shin perhaps. Reverse. Use your breath to get there. And again, as you tap down, maybe your fingers go a little lower or a little closer to your front foot. Reverse. Tap down. Reverse. One more tap down. Last reverse here. Then come into warrior two. Adjust your front foot. Bring it a little closer to you, finding that nice lunge position like a 90 degrees. Arms back up to center. And then twist to the left. Open twist for a couple of rounds here. Reaching your left hand back nice and far. And then tucking your left shoulder blade behind you. You can also play with pulling your left hip crease back a little, rotating at the waistline, and then rotating at your rib cage by shimmying with your shoulder blades. Give yourself a breath. Lift the pit of your belly as you exhale for stability. Then revolve crescent. Back fingers reach towards your back calf. Right hand reaches up. You can also play with reaching your right hand back. Give yourself a big full breath here. The tabletop, slow, steady to get there. Cow pose. Cat on your way to downward facing dog. And again, in this down dog, checking in with your breath, checking in with your neck, letting it hang heavy. Then go ahead and lift your right leg up again. Step it forward, back knee down. And then play a moment here. Come up, hands come to your hips. Take a peek and make sure that your back hip is over your back knee. So a lot of times we go forward in these lunge positions. We're going to find this lined up position for starters. It's a little bit like you were playing with that push-pull in your lunge, but rather than pushing your front knee forward, you're really focusing on lifting your left hip point up away from your bottom knee, your left knee. That lifting action, you can use your fingertips at the bottom of your hip point, almost trying to scoop it up. Tailbone tucks, hip points lift. And then as you do that, encourage your left butt cheek to push your hips forward. It's going to be a very small motion, that little push forward as you keep lifting up through your hips. So again, this active stretch in this hip flexor complex is going to feel different than that low lunge, that more leaning forward position. We'll spend just a breath or two here. Hip point lifted, little squeeze of your butt, pressing your hips forward. Give yourself a big, deep breath. And then come down to your hands, lizard lunge, hands inside your front foot. You can play with sliding your back knee back or walking your front foot a little further forward. And we'll spend a little time here just settling in, a little bit of rest in this posture. If you find you want more depth, again, keep playing with sliding your left knee back a little further. You can also play with coming down to your forearms. The goal is not necessarily to get as low to the ground as you can. It's really focusing on opening up through the front of your left hip. Noticing the sound and rhythm of your breath. Those of you in West Michigan, you might be hearing the sound of a thunderstorm, different sounds around your house. Just noticing as you slow down, the sensation and sound. What do you feel? What do you hear? And transitioning from this lizard lunge, you're just going to shift back to half splits. And this is just a couple of breaths. This is going to close that back hip joint, giving you a little bit of softening in that stretch you just did. Also stretching the back of your front leg. You can lean your chest towards your toes. You can also play with pointing or flexing your front foot. Just see what feels better for another breath or two here. And come back to tabletop. If you have a pillow, slide it out of the way. And we're going to play with pressure style stretch on the calves. I'm going to turn a little. This might be helpful to see my legs. I know this is not the best angle, but you're going to walk your right knee back a couple of inches. So it's a few inches behind your left knee. You're going to swing your right shin on top of your left calf. So you're looking for the meaty part of your calf. You might have to lean forward to open up your left knee joint. Again, you're using the shin bone of your right leg to press into the meaty part of your left calf. And then you're playing again with shifting back. So, like we started, you were leaning back into your heels in those seated positions. Same idea. The more you lean back, the more sensation you're going to feel. If you don't feel sensation, put more weight into your hands and adjust your shin bone. If you feel a lot of sensation, keep more weight in your hands. Now we'll spend a couple of breaths here on this first place. We're going to look for 2 points of tension in the calf where you're feeling sensation. And this pressure style stretch can feel a little bit different than your traditional muscular stretch. You want to make sure that you're not putting too much pressure. If your body is resisting or your breath is quickening rather quickly, you just want to back off a little bit. Go ahead and release that part. You might move your shin bone down an inch or so, or you might move your right knee back a couple of inches, just finding a new point of pressure. Again, just settling into that pressure point. Sometimes shifting your hips a little to the left or the right helps you find a new position. And notice your breath here. Take a big, deep breath. See if you can expand your low ribs, your low belly. And as you exhale, maybe leaning into this pressure style stretch just another millimeter. Then unwind back to your tabletop. And downward facing dog. Just playing with lengthening your left leg. You might even walk your left leg back a couple of inches so you can press your heel down a bit further. Just getting some length in that calf that you just put that pressure style stretch on. And then coming back into your standard downward facing dog, however you feel stable. And lift your left leg, take a breath as you do so. Step your left leg forward. We're again starting with that stacked lunge. So back hip directly above your back knee. You might have to adjust your front foot to find that. Playing again with the action stretch before we get to the passive stretch. Your right hip point is lifting, tailbone tucking a bit. And you're finding again that little push pull. Squeeze your right bum to try to push your hips forward, but you're resisting that forward motion by lifting your right hip point up. Again, your own fingertips are a really lovely self assist. You can kind of dig around underneath your right hip point to try to lift it a little further. And if you're anything like me, your body might be shaking a little bit. So you're figuring out what's the right amount of effort for me. Just another breath or two. Right bum active, right hip point lifted. Go ahead and release that. Settle yourself into a lizard lunge. Again, making any adjustments. Front foot can walk forward, back knee can slide back a little. And as you land here, see if you can soften your shoulders. Sometimes we end up pushing the floor away. See if you can soften your shoulders down away from your ears. Keep your elbows a little bit soft. And as we stay in these more passive style stretches, gravity and time does the work. And a lot of times it's just remembering to soften. So you don't have to force yourself deeper. You might find you're just asking, does my front knee want to lean a teeny bit more forward? Another breath or two here. And turning your lizard lunge into half splits. And if you're leaning towards your toes, lift with your chest, chest up tall, and then lean forward. And take your time. Come into your tabletop again. If you have a pillow, just slide it out of the way. And then second side pressure styles calf stretch. Left knee slides back a couple of inches. Left shin glides over your right calf. And again, putting as much pressure as you would like on your right calf by walking your hands back. Hands up off the ground and seated upright is going to be the most intensity. Again, making adjustments. And so for some folks, I'm one of them. There's a lot of tenderness in the calf. So you want to make sure you're not putting too much pressure on it so that your nervous system is trying to resist. It's just enough pressure that you're feeling like, ooh, there's a lot of sensation there. But again, if you're not feeling sensation, you just want to find your left shin bone in a slightly different position. So just kind of feeling around in there until you feel something. This is one of those postures in person. I'll oftentimes be able to see on people's faces like, "Ooh, this is intense." Because I can't see that, I just want to name that it can be rather intense. And then there are some folks like, I just don't feel a lot here. That is perfectly normal. Pressure style stretch is a lot different than our traditional muscular stretch. And just another breath or two on this first location on the calf. And then make an adjustment. Again, maybe your left knee walks back a little or down your calf a bit. Just finding a new space. Left toes can be tucked behind you or toenail side down. Finding a space that you feel sensation through your right calf. Left shin creating that sensation. Especially if this is an intense posture for you, it's normal that sometimes we hold our breath a bit. See if you can take a deeper breath. Let your ribs expand. Let your belly expand with the inhale. See if you can create a little bit more space between your shoulders and ears as you exhale. And then unwind, make your way back to tabletop. And then downward facing dog. Same idea, stretching out your right calf this time. Maybe you want to walk your right foot back a little to find more stretch through the right calf. And back to your downward facing dog. And gently push your hands away from you to lengthen your sides, soften your neck. And then one more of these stacked lunges. Step your right foot forward, left hip stacks over back knee. But this time we're going to keep this shorter lunge. We're going to push our knee forward. So your knee is actually going to be pretty far over your right toes here. If we were weight bearing in a crescent lunge, you don't necessarily want your knee tracking over your toes for an extended period. But in this position, we've got a lot of support. What we're playing with is seeing if we can find a new sensation in the lower calf. So press your right knee forward enough that your left heel lifts a little, and it might literally be an inch just off the ground. As you're pressing your right knee forward, you're going to actively press your right heel downward. This is one of those where, again, it's subtle. Sometimes you're like, ooh, I feel it right away. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time. We're getting into some of the white tissue. White tissue is a very different stretch sensation than red tissue, the muscular tissue. Again, it's just another breath or two. Press your right knee as far forward as it'll go. Right heel is lifted. As you press your right knee forward, actively press your right heel down. Again, it doesn't necessarily move much. We're just creating those two dual actions to make new sensation. And give yourself a big deep breath here. Right knee forward, right heel downward. Nice and slow, step your way back to downward facing dog. Second side, last series with the lower legs, the calves. Again, finding your stacked lunge for starters. And then with that stacked lunge, start to walk your left knee way forward, knee tracks over your toes. Left heel is lifted slightly. So as you press your left knee forward, a little bit of space between your left heel and the floor. And again, there's action as you press your knee forward and action as you press your left heel downward. A couple of places that can stop stretch sensation. Sometimes the front of your ankle doesn't allow any more flexion, so you're not going to feel a ton of stretch, and that's okay. If you feel a lot of stretch, also okay. Again, we're getting into these smaller muscles, this white tissue area. Again, left knee pressing forward actively with your hand, and then left heel actively pressing downward. There's many reasons why we work on the calves. One of them is because most of our shoes have a little bit of a lift in the heel. So our calf lives in a shortened position most of the day. It's very, very common. So this is a very common imbalance in the body, that the calf is a little bit tight. And the other reason we play there is there's a pumping mechanism in the calf that helps pump blood back up to your heart. So the releasing of this pressure down here can actually help support your cardiovascular system. We'll just do one more breath here on this side. And downward facing dog or child's pose. Child's pose is nice because you're closing the knee joint again. Down dog is nice if you want a little bit of movement. Go ahead and come up to sit on your knees one more time. So seated on your shins, toenail side down, toes untucked. Grab a hold of your knees. Again, round your upper back for baby cat. You can pull one knee up and then the other to get a little bit more stretch sensation behind your shoulder blade. It's almost like you're walking your knees one at a time and keeping a very strong dome shape in your upper back. And go ahead and release your knees. Reach your hands back behind you. Some of you are simply going to be reaching back. Some of you, your fingertips are going to touch the ground. In either position, you're focusing on puffing up through your chest, reaching your hands back. If your hands are not touching the ground, you're going to reach the backs of your hands towards each other. If your fingers are touching the ground, try turning your thumbs out so your shoulder is rotating open. If your fingers are down, you can use downward pressure to puff up through your chest. Just a little bit of opening. Again, you can shift a little side to side. If your hands are not touching the ground, you can still do that same shifting, really focusing on squeezing your shoulder blades together as you find that little rotation. If it's comfortable, you can lift your chin or let your head go back. And then finally, embryo pose, a variation of child's pose. You can do that slow tap down if you'd like, forehead slowly down. Hands are going to reach back, palms facing up. They can rest on top of your feet or right beside them. Chin tucked slightly, and then rest. Embryo pose is a nice passive stretch for the shoulder blades. Really focusing on deep breaths here because of the position of the knees a little bit closer together. You're breathing against the resistance of your legs, which can create more spaciousness in the side and back of your ribs as you breathe. You just focus on 2 or 3 more big, deep breaths, letting your body expand and find space on the back ribs just by breathing deeply. We'll go ahead and come up. You're going to swing your right shin forward for 90-90 legs. So you're just making 2 90-degree angles with your legs, right shin parallel-ish to the front of your mat, left shin parallel-ish to the side edge of your mat. And then once you find this position here, lift your chest up and see if you can rotate directly over your front knee. You might find it's a little more comfortable to rotate towards your right toes a little, or to rotate a little farther to the right, letting your left shoulder come a little closer to your right knee. Again, just finding somewhere in there which feels like a stretch for your right outer hip, and then also support for your upper body. Land here for several rounds of breath. See if you can find a rest for your head. You might even grab your pillow and give yourself a forehead rest that way. As you stay, just allowing some softening through your right outer hip. Just notice again the rhythm of your breath. Sometimes creating sound with your breath helps you pay attention to it again. Press yourself up and keep the 90-90 position on your legs. We're going to turn this into a deep belly twist. Your left knee might want to slide forward a little towards your right heel. You're going to rotate your body to the right. And as you rotate your body to the right, you may come down to your right elbow. Some of you may come down to your left elbow. So you're rotating at the waist here. And then some of you might be able to lay flat. And I'm just going to switch my position in case it's helpful to see the visual of it. So again, you're rotating towards the right, and then maybe right elbow, maybe left elbow, just starting to come down flat. Again, your left knee might glide a little closer to your right heel, especially if you start to lower your chest to the floor. If you'd like to add a little more, you can spread your left arm underneath you. You don't have to be down on your forearms to do that. So you can thread your left arm and stay high. If you're lower, you might be lowering your left shoulder to the ground. Just a few more breaths in this deep belly twist. Then unwind. Bring your hands back to the center of your mat. You're just going to glide your legs back and then come up either into cobra or an up dog. Just letting the front of your hips open. You might even sway your hips a little bit side to side in this chest opener, heart opener, hip opener. And slide back to tabletop. Bring your left shin forward. Right shin goes out to the side, 90-90 legs. Same idea. Once you find the positionality here, chest towards your front knee, you can swing a little to the left or a little towards your front toes. Find a position to land in where you feel some stretch sensation. Yes. Notice the quality of your breath. Is it possible to breathe a bit deeper again? When you feel ready, go ahead and come up to long arms, deep belly twist, rotating your torso to the left this time. And again, you might find right knee comes a little closer to your left heel. First, try left elbow. Maybe your right elbow comes down, but it's not about getting as low as you can. It's finding a twist that works for your body. You could like to add that thread the needle element. You'll just glide your right arm underneath your chest. And again, you can do that from a long left arm, just getting a bit more rotation. You might find you're laying down on your right shoulder. Take a breath, make it full, and let that breath out. Bring yourself up to center. And go ahead and swing your legs forward. Grab your pillow and take either legs up the wall, or you can take supported fish. If you've never taken fish with a pillow behind your shoulder blades, it feels rather lovely for a lot of people. And it can be a little bit more mild than fish on a yoga block. So just playing with either heart opener or letting your legs be up. And you're welcome in that position to either close your eyes once you get situated or just set your gaze on something steady. Start to soften your vision in some way. Whenever you feel ready, land in Shavasana. Maybe the position that you're in right now is your Shavasana. Maybe you want to find a wall to rest your legs on. Find a posture that feels really supportive. As you're resting, if you find your mind moving, just invite your mind to notice your breath. The breath is also always moving. Just really curious about that rhythmic movement of breath. Give your mind permission to rest, especially if in your own house you don't normally rest until you're in bed. Really lovely opportunity. Give your mind permission and give it the opportunity to rest. Start to find a little bit of movement in your body. Oftentimes, just a gentle rocking of your head side to side, nice release of your neck, really subtle, slow movement. And then as you're ready, roll to one side. Tucking in as you roll to the side is really nice for your nervous system. It feels supportive and safe. We often roll to the right as it lifts your heart slightly. Go ahead and press yourself up to a seated position. Take a moment here. As you're getting situated, you can bring your palms together like a symbol of gratitude, hands over heart. You might even grab opposite elbows, just giving yourself a little hug. Whatever feels good for you. Just settling in. And as we end tonight, we'll end with a few loving kindness phrases, just a way of offering yourself your own well wishing. If the phrases make sense, you can just repeat them back to yourself. May I remember to care for my body. May I remember the innate goodness of my breathing. And as I head into this evening, may I find ease and deep rest. Take your time. Whenever you feel complete, find a little movement, or maybe don't. Maybe just stay here. Maybe you're just done for the night. But whatever you decide to do, see if you can go slow these first couple of steps here. I really appreciate being with you all in this way, this little virtual experience. Love sharing my space with you and you share your space with me. I really appreciate it. So lovely to practice with you. If you have questions, please holler. Let me know if you need anything. And we'll see you soon, either in the studio or see you again this way soon. Thanks for joining, friends.